Hi, everybody. Welcome once again to the Non-Prophets. This show is brought to you by the Atheist Community of Austin. I'm your host, Jeff D. Our co-host is Vic Farrow, and today we are joined by our second co-host, Mary McManamee. Hi, Mary. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Jeff. Hi, Vic.
Hey.
Our producer is Russell Glasser. And
Hi.
He's over there. And today's show features these two exciting new omnidirectional microphones that we've plugged in. We had half an hour of crazy stringing of cables and wiring and stuff. And
Yay, Dad!
Yes, thanks to Mary's father for donating the use of the microphones to our group. But we hope that this is going to greatly improve the quality of our show, and certainly those of you in the chat room can let us know how much better this sounds. We are live January 19, 2002. As I said before, we are the Non-Prophets. That means we are a bunch of folks who are going to tell you things about the world without any reference to claims of supernatural inspiration. We're just sitting here using our brains.
I've seen the light. Oh, yeah, it's on the ceiling.
The Atheist Community of Austin is a non-profit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. The ACA has meetings every Sunday morning at the Hot Jumbo Bagel Shop at 307 West 5th Street in Austin, Texas at 10:30 a.m., except for the first Sunday of each month when we have our lecture series at 11 a.m. in the Longhorn Room of Fur's Cafeteria at North Cross Mall. The Godless Gamers is a spin-off group of the ACA, meeting every Monday night at my place to play board games, card games, occasional karaoke and role-playing games, what have you. ACA Happy Hour is at Antonio's, again here in Austin, Texas, near Highway 35 and 183, every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. I haven't been there for a long time. Have any of you hit Happy Hour recently?
I haven't.
Yeah, I go regularly, because it's right next door to mine.
That's right. It's like a block away from you.
I can walk there.
Is it still going healthy?
Yes, we have
crowd?
a usual about 8 to 10 turnout.
Yeah,
And
that's great.
It's been really one good show.
For those of you who might be wondering about the Atheist Community of Austin, we are a nonprofit organization. We have a paid membership of not quite 100 at last report. I think 85 is a number I heard. And we have a very active group. Was it 2 weeks ago? We had our rally, or was that 1 week ago now?
This week. Yeah, this week.
The rally was
a week ago.
A week ago,
Saturday.
Right? That was a rally on the state Capitol steps here in Austin, Texas.
And I'd like to mention that Steve and I got the tapes edited, and they've been submitted to the Access channel, and they'll be coming on the air someday.
Oh, that's the videotapes of the actual rally.
Yes, including some footage at the end of David with the Ten Commandments monument.
Right, and featuring Cross Lady.
Yeah, twice. Oh,
there's this woman showed up at the rally holding like this gigantic 1.5-foot tall cross in front of her with a Jesus nailed to it,
wearing a
and just radiating sorrow for all of us and how evil we were for trying to take the Christianity out of her beloved
America.
America.
Oscar for that sad face performance, man. It was just.
I have to think that she went away just saddened to the depths of her heart that we didn't take her out and beat her like she was expecting.
Well,
she really wanted to sacrifice herself for her Lord, I could tell.
She had the DPS officer standing by her for quite a while. I'm not sure whether he was trying to protect her from us or us from her.
Did you notice Don Rhodes worked that into his address, right? Saying, look, here we have a police officer protecting this woman's freedom of religion, right?
Yeah.
And what a good thing that was. As soon as Don did that, the police officer walked away from her. Did you notice that?
Yeah. So I guess he wasn't scared anymore.
Wow. For more information on the Atheist Community of Austin, you can call our voicemail at area code 512-371-2911 or visit our website, which is www.atheist-community.org. Now, this is a live internet audio show, and we're running on the Atheist Network. You probably know that already if you're listening to us. What you might not know is that they have this exciting chat room going in parallel to the shows on the Atheist Network, if you log into www.atheistnetwork.com and click the chat link, you will find yourself in a chat room with bunches of other people who are listening to the show and chatting with each other and talking about what's going on here and what we're saying. And often we will respond to comments from folks in the chat room. So it's an exciting way to be part of our broadcast. Now I'm going to turn it over to Vic for the latest news.
Well, there's not a whole lot of latest anything going on. That and my computer, which has a mind of its own and decided it's not going to let me on the internet today.
Oh, boy.
But, thanks to the trusty Austin Chronicle, you can always go to find something weird. Lo and behold, there's some weird stuff going on. I was sitting at breakfast reading this, and I about lost it.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, Mr. Producer.
The chat room says we now have close to 120 members.
Who's that?
Oh, do we?
Really?
I'm being updated by an ACA member in the chat room who says these are 120 paid members. Yes. Awesome. Awesome. We kick ass. Woo!
We're bigger than we thought we were.
Yeah.
But anyway, according to this article in the Chronicle, there has been
Michelle.
It's Michelle who's telling us this. Well, she would know, being one of our two co-chairs. Her and Ray, it's Michelle Gadouche, co-chair of the ACA, along with Ray Blevins. Yeah. Thank you, Michelle, for the info.
Yeah. Well, there has been an even bigger worldwide jump in exorcisms since 1973, when the movie The Exorcist came out. According to several press reports in September, the official Roman Catholic exorcisms have jumped from 1 in 1995 to at least 15 in 2001. And here's a good one. The church maintains 10 official exorcists or exorcist priests on duty at all times.
This is the Catholic Church.
Yes. And other sources say that there may be over 500 Protestant evangelical exorcist churches. Boy. This is 2002, folks. I can just imagine going there with one report here. Michael Cuneo, C-U-N-E-O, I guess, said he attended about 50 and has seen a lot of fireworks and lots of dramatic activities, but nothing supernatural. Apparently nobody's head spun around. They didn't spit pea soup across the room. But this happens.
Hey. Pea soup is entirely physical.
Yeah, but, if it's spitting out of somebody whose skin is cracking and their head spinning around in circles, I might, worry about that. But, come on, folks. Exorcisms. Jeez. Have we gone...
Yeah, you can look at that a couple of different ways. You can look at it and say, that's horrible that the Catholic Church has got 10 guys on staff, that's their job, right?
Yeah.
Is to drive demons out of people's bodies. On the other hand, you can look at it and say, 10 isn't that many considering a gigantic world-spanning religion.
Yeah, okay.
And compared to what used to be going on. I mean, our own federal government is known for hiring people for all kinds of crazy, insane things, like their whole remote viewing program that remote viewing advocates won't frickin' shut up about.
But compared to the 500 or more evangelical exorcisms...
Yeah, they're downright, modern.
Yeah. So the Catholic Church is saying, there's nothing incompatible with religion and evolution. We have, just in case.
Martin says we ought to send some of the exorcists over to Chile to take care of those Bernie graveyard people.
People with living on the graveyard and having the erotic dreams that we reported on last week.
Erotic sex dreams living on the graveyard. There you go.
But I thought they said they were calling it an exorcist in that story.
Did they? Yeah.
Oh,
she said that
yeah.
I remember one part of the story was if she couldn't get the exorcist to clear out the demons, she was going to move.
Her husband wasn't getting
any sleep.
I'm thinking of moving on to a cemetery.
I don't know if the husband was actually complaining. He might not. He might like that. Move, honey. No, we're not moving.
All right.
But that was,
Keep in mind, 2002.
2002, yes. Oh, gosh. Now, there's this other one I was reading while we were setting up here. This is just funny. A 39-year-old woman was found not guilty of abducting her children in a divorce fight, but moments later was convicted of contempt of court because she wouldn't stop putting her finger in her mouth and making popping sounds while the judge was speaking.
What?
While the judge is talking, she's going,
What the heck?
oh, but they do
This is not religion related.
No, this is not religion related. This is news of the weird. It just
Okay.
happened to be-
Chuck Shepherd.
Yeah, there's strange people everywhere.
Wow.
There is a story that I found on the internet that came out recently of a former Catholic priest who was convicted of grabbing a 10-year-old's buttocks in 1991. Apparently he was giving the kid swimming lessons. He stuck his hand in the kid's trunks and grabbed his butt. And since 1995, over 130 people have alleged that this particular priest has either fondled or raped them in the 3 years that he served as. In 3 years! 130 in
That's
3
not the
years!
statistic I want to hear.
Yeah.
The statistic I want to know is how many different Catholic priests have been convicted of these kinds of offenses.
Oh, this story does not address that.
That's what I want to know. You know, I don't care how horrible this one guy was.
Right.
I know that, like,
But-
practically every week another one of these stories comes up,
Yeah, I
right?
know, it's
And
all
there's
the
how many
time.
weeks in a year?
Yeah.
And how many priests does that make in 10 years? I mean, good grief.
Yeah, I mean, what is it about being in the clergy that attracts pedophiles? I don't get that. I guess because, easy access to children and, who's going to question the priest? Not the parishioners, apparently.
Us, maybe?
Yeah.
Because we're just not buying this whole,
Yeah.
priests appointed by supernatural powers
It is-
to have special authority over people.
It is left to us, the rational ones, to point out that these guys are not only corrupting your minds, but your body as well.
Well, no, there's nothing wrong with grabbing another human being's butt.
Well, not if he's 10.
Okay, yeah, right. There you go.
I'm sure that the
If they're
10-year-old did not...
If they're a consenting adult.
Consenting adults, no problem. But
Two consenting adults can
what's
rope each other's butts all they want.
What was going on is this religious organization that's preaching that kind of behavior is evil, right?
Yeah.
Even among consenting adults.
Uh-huh.
And then their own representatives are going out doing this to children.
Right. And probably making some kind of threat towards the child to keep him silent. Because this particular kid kept silent almost 10 years.
Mm.
Yeah.
He finally came out and said
how long did the whole frickin' religious organization keep silent?
Oh,
about
they
this?
do it.
Yeah.
They
Right?
do
I mean, they've been denying all these things until recent years. There's so many of them coming to light that they just can't pretend that it doesn't happen anymore.
Right,
At least now they are defrocking these guys, because what they used to do is somebody got caught and
Ship them
just
off
ship them
some-
to another church.
Yes.
They ship them to another neighborhood where they never heard what this guy was up to.
And I think that's actually what happened to this guy, isn't it?
No, this was
Wasn't he at some
he was
point?
defrocked.
But I mean, before that, I think. I think
it's come up before with
I
him?
think something.
Wouldn't
I think
be
he had
surprised.
gotten in trouble before, and they instead of defrocking him, they did send him to another church. Now I don't know that for sure. That's my own sketchy memory.
Well,
but
they
I
have a
remember
history of
hearing
doing that,
story.
so it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah,
Uh,
that may not be true in this particular case, but it seems like I remember
this
reading
particular
that.
story only addresses the one case what he was convicted from.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh well.
But that happens all the time.
Yeah.
And I've seen it from the inside, okay? My parents are, again, ministers, right? They've been having marital problems. Really severe marital problems that many people get divorced over, okay? The details are none of your business. But it is the business of their parishioners, right? The behavior of my parents matters when my parents are set up as the moral, examples for the community. What is the response of my parents to having these personal problems? To keep it hidden from their parishioners at all costs. That is the way they respond. Not to step down, not to say, gosh, now we realize that we're no better than anybody else, right? Their response is to be real secretive.
Oh.
To pretend everything's okay. It's horrifying.
Well,
Horrifying the way they lie to people thinking it's for their own good.
Well, not to make a correlation here, but I mean, that's really how pedophiles get away with what they do, is that, people say it's not okay to talk about that. Not just the pedophile saying that to the child, but people even
Right.
among families.
well,
Right.
There's a lot of shame and stigma about,
Right.
about being,
you have a
about
small
being
child
victimized.
who thinks he has no one to talk to about this thing that's happening to him.
Right.
That it's going to end up getting him in trouble as well, and so he keeps quiet, or she keeps quiet, or whoever the victim is.
Right. Add on top of that the fact that we're talking about priests in these cases,
Yeah.
right? And
who's going to believe them?
And then I think then we're starting to get into an explanation for how so many priests are pedophiles, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is a position of authority in which you can act this way with impunity because people are terrified to talk about it.
Now, it occurs to me that they preach about hell and damnation. Wouldn't they be afraid, if they really believe what they are claiming to believe, that
You would think
they're
so.
going to fry in hell because they've done this thing that they're not?
They certainly tell you. Yes, Russell.
I know that. I mean, I know what Christians will say, even though they make this big deal with the fire and the brimstone and all that stuff about how you shouldn't sin. If you do sin, it's okay because you're not forgiven. You are forgiven, which means that Christianity is ultimately useless as a moral guide because it doesn't ultimately matter what you do.
Right,
Okay.
but these same folks
You
will
can
still
confess
argue.
your sins at the end of your life and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, God, please forgive me," and it's done.
They'll tell you that, but they'll also tell you that the whole, one of the important functions of religion is to get people to behave better, and that stories of horrible tortures in hell serve the purpose of keeping people in line.
Yeah,
I mean,
they say that
do.
when they're trying to get government funding, but once they catch some of these priests, it's like, oh, well, it's not
Right.
really about that. It's about being forgiven. We forgive him.
Well, the whole story about hell and fire and damnation apparently doesn't work because they still behave just like everybody else.
Yeah.
But
It's because there is no hell.
and they really know it. They really know in their hearts.
They don't want to
I'm going to play
believe
their own game on them. They really know in their hearts that there's no heaven and hell, but they just refuse to believe.
Yeah. I'm happy to accept that they believe whatever it is they tell me they believe. But if it makes no sense, I'm going to tell them that too.
All right. That's not doing them any good.
Anything else in the recent events?
I don't know. Some of our listeners may have heard of the American Center for Law and Justice. This is a Pat Robertson, Jay Sekulow kind of organization.
Right.
Is it like
Sekulow
J-Lo?
Jay Sekulow is the attorney who represents these nitwits most of the time, and they are sending out a fundraising letter. And remember, this is a fundraising letter, making the claim that a California school district wants to force 7th graders to participate in Muslim worship activities. And they need your help today to protest this violation of religious freedom and protect the rights of your children and grandchildren. But
now, I just want to know, did they also send a letter about Governor Rick Perry's announcement in Texas that he wants students in grade schools in Texas to be obligated to utter prayers?
Yeah,
did they complain about that?
Of course not. Those are Christian prayers.
I see.
They only complain about the Muslim because those heathen Muslims, we can't have our children praying to those heathen Muslim things. They'll go to hell. They've sent out this really strong letter accusing the California school district of forcing children to participate in Muslim. Students of the class not only receive handouts on Islam and the life of Muhammad, they must also chant praise to Allah, Lord of creation, pray in the name of Allah, the compassionate, the merciful, stage their own jihad. Dress up as Muslims and choose a new Muslim name. Now, what actually is happening is there is a state mandated California comparative religion study, which goes along with history class, and it teaches the history and the religion in relation to history. And there are role-playing games where you act out in Muslim to try to get a better grasp of the culture itself. Right. The jihad is basically a dice game. It's a dice game. You're playing the dice game on it, and it's all, some of this is extracurricular. You're not actually obligated to do some of this. Right. But the studies in not only includes Islam, but also includes Christianity and other religions as it relates to history. And so this letter is just so full of crap and lies, outright just lies.
You were telling me before the show they're also upset that Christianity is portrayed in a negative light.
There is a particular textbook where they claim that Christianity is portrayed in a negative light because it displays things like the Inquisition, witch hunts, and such as that. And they don't think that it's portraying Islam in such a negative light. But I haven't read this textbook, so I don't know exactly what they're talking about. And given that this letter has been full of shit, I wouldn't be surprised to find out that their claims that the textbook is portraying Christianity in a negative light is any less bullshit. Because it's more probably related to those historical events. There were witch hunts. There was an inquisition. These things did happen, even though, some Christians will want to reword it or deny it in some way. Like it wasn't as bad as the secularist claim.
If there were Muslim witch hunts and crusades, I want to know about those too. And the fact that I don't tells me it's not just our public school system that is lax, but our entire culture that is lax in criticizing the Muslim faith. If in fact there were Muslim inquisitions and crusades that I've never heard about. But I've never heard about them, so it's really hard to take these claims seriously.
Well, here's where their own words come to bite them in the butt.
Okay.
In the letter, it says...
This is the biting them in the butt rather than fondling their butt?
Well, yeah, okay. This is them sticking their foot in their mouth. They claim no student should be forced into religious activity.
Great. That's the sense that I agree with.
Did you mention that these were the guys on the Santa Fe prayer case?
The Santa Fe, Texas prayer case.
That's the same organization. The same organization that wanted to force
children to pray.
Force the children to play at a Santa Fe, Texas high school football game.
Right. It's okay to force them into it as long as it's Christian.
They play a game that, the students there voted to have their prayers. Yeah. Therefore, it's not forcing them. But they're missing the point that you cannot vote to do something that is unconstitutional.
Right.
You cannot vote to do something that shits all over the civil rights of everybody who isn't in favor of your vote.
Damn right.
Right? You can vote, do things that some people don't agree with, as long as their civil rights are not being violated.
Right.
There's a difference. Well, thanks very much, Vic, for bringing us up to date on current events. Mary, what do you got for us?
Okay.
And again, welcome to the show. Now, you're going to be a permanent addition to our crew?
Well, yes.
You're committing to
this? I'm
okay,
committing.
Great. That's awesome.
This is my little segment called, Can Somebody Explain This to Me?
Okay.
All right. So, basically what I was doing this week was looking on the internet and trying to find a good...
You can do that? I can't do that today.
I know. Talk about irony. I mean,
kick my computer. They say the computer doesn't have intelligence. Mine does, and it's mean.
Oh, well, I wanted to try to find an issue that was timely as well as explosive, for lack of a better word.
Uh-huh.
And I think I got a good one this week.
Yeah.
Basically, it looks like a lot of folks around the country are denying their children vaccinations simply for religious reasons.
Uh-huh.
And when I say religious reasons, I don't mean a particular religion necessarily, although there may be some denominations that do advocate this particular practice. But what got me onto this story was a website. Russell, can we... Okay. All right. It's www.lc.org. It's the website for Liberty Counsel, which is a fundamentalist Christian, for lack of a better label, organization.
That's an excellent label.
that basically condones the idea that there ought to be somebody fighting for religious rights.
Uh-huh.
In the same way that we fight for secular rights to keep religion out of the schools and out of public places, this place fights to try to put them in and to try to fight for religious freedom.
Yeah.
Religious freedom, huh?
Yeah, the guy, I know. Oh, it gets worse.
Okay. Sorry. Wake up. You do not have to fight for religious rights in the United States. It's guaranteed in the Constitution. Okay. Now, shut down your stupid little Liberty Counsel webpage and go home. You do not have to fight for your religious rights in the United States of America. You are guaranteed your religious freedoms by the Constitution.
And this guy's a lawyer, so you'd think he'd know better. Matthew Staver is the president and general counsel for the group. I'm assuming he also founded the group, but I don't know for sure. But anyway... One of his press releases on the website is concerning a particular woman, Joanne Curtis, and her daughter, Brianna Curtis, Brianna wants to go to elementary school at Hilton Central School District in Rochester, New York, but her mother doesn't want to give her vaccinations on religious grounds. At least that's the story as Matt Staver of Liberty Counsel tells it in this press release.
What are the religious grounds for refusing vaccination for your children?
For this particular story, it's unclear, because this press release really doesn't, give any quotes from Joanne Curtis, and I also went to the Rochester, New York newspaper. It's called The Democrat and something, but anyway, I know you can find it. Just do a Google search for Rochester, New York newspaper, and you'll find it. But I couldn't find any articles written about Joanne Curtis or her daughter Brianna. And that's not to say there aren't any out there, but it did kind of raise some flags for me. But who knows? All right. So assuming that this is true,
are you suggesting the Liberty Counsel may have made this
Well,
up?
no, I can't say that I would take it that far, because there probably really is a Joanne Curtis, and I mean. And there
just
probably
like there really is a school system in California that really does have comparative religion classes, but all the details in the fundraising letter about them were completely false. Okay,
yeah. So, do with this what you will, but essentially the crux of the story, is basically the idea of immunizations, of children denying parents denying their children vaccinations on religious grounds. So that caused me to dig a little bit further.
Yeah.
And I came upon a site called New Yorkers for Vaccination Information and Choice. And let me just go ahead and pass that link to Russell real quick. And basically, here's what their webpage says. It says, New Yorkers for Vaccination Information and Choice is dedicated to providing information and support to families and individuals who are exploring alternatives in health and seeking to make informed choices with regard to the possible vaccination of their children. That sounds very logical, right?
Yeah.
Well...
well, no. Actually, alternatives to what?
Alternatives in health, and seeking to make informed choices with regard to the possible vaccination of their children.
All right.
So
okay. Newsflash for these people. Informed choices are going to come from the people who understand medicine, and those are called doctors. Okay? People are called doctors. If they say that you should vaccinate your kid, you're getting pretty much all the information that there is. What people are really talking about when they say alternatives to traditional medicine is they're talking about, new age made up bullshit.
Yeah, like homeopathy.
Which is astounding to me because homeopathy is an excellent example, and particularly in light of this story, because homeopathy is telling people that it's sort of like vaccination, right? It's like this magical version of vaccination. Homeopathic medicine says that if you're vomiting, then the way to cure it is find something that makes you vomit, dilute it a lot, and then take that. Okay? It's like a vaccination.
Oh, no.
Except the problem is that vaccinations work because they trigger your immune system, right? Against very weakened strains of the disease that you're trying to fight, right? Whereas this is like, they'll take things that are not they are not the thing that is making you ill. It's a completely other thing. If there's some herbal leaf that if you eat it, it makes you throw up, they'll say, well, grind that up into a powder, put a tiny, tiny bit of that in some water and dilute it and drink that, right? Has nothing to do with your actual disease.
They claim that water has memory properties. However,
that's because they dilute this stuff so much that it is unlikely that when you drink the concoction that you're getting
you don't drink it. They take this stuff.
Homeopathy?
Homeopathy. Some of it maybe, but
what they do?
Most of your homeopathy is what they'll
anally?
They dilute this chemical in water, and then they take a bit of that and dilute some more water, and do this over and over and over again. And then they take a drop of that and they put it on a pill. So by the time you actually ingest it,
all right.
the water is dissolved.
Fine. Yeah.
There's no water left. There's any water left. There's nothing. You're taking just nothing.
But there is also, by the time a drop of water goes on the pill, it is unlikely that a single molecule of the thing that's supposed to be the active ingredient is even there. And so they have this insane claim that water remembers what was dissolved in it. Apparently pills remember what the water that evaporated from them remembered. It's completely insane. That is the kind of alternatives that people are being offered to actual, to honest scientific-based medicine.
That and crystals. Hold the crystal to your forehead and you'll ooze out some medication or something. I don't know.
And you can make the argument that, well, if somebody wants to believe that for themselves, that's one thing, maybe.
They're crazy.
I mean, if they want to be crazy and believe in that crap, all right, go for it. But the problem is when you bring your child into it, the child is not old enough to make an informed decision for himself or herself.
Right. And
you have these parents making the decision for them not to vaccinate them based on their own idiotic beliefs.
And we have had court cases very recently of religious families refusing to, daughter with...
Oh, she had a serious illness that she died from it.
Right, and they were brought in, they were convicted, but they essentially got a slap on the wrist.
Right.
For killing their kid.
The daughter, they didn't want to have the treatment because having treatment violated their religious stance. So their daughter got sick and died.
Now, in this specific case...
It was a painful suffering kind of death, too. So
right.
I don't remember which one it was. It was a serious illness, though.
In this specific case that triggered your study here, they wouldn't let this unvaccinated girl into the public schools. Is that correct?
Well, see, I hate to rely solely on this press release from the Liberty Council, considering the source, but it does say New York state law requires school-age children to be subjected to a laundry list of various vaccinations, including vaccinations that are solely derived from aborted fetal cell tissues. Which, again, I know. And, again, that's why I wanted to research further. I wanted to have, to be able to discount all of this information. But basically, the upshot is, I did find, another article from a more, unbiased source, I believe. It's, Public Health, Seattle and King County.
Yeah. Can I
but go ahead,
comment
sure.
before you go on to that? I just wanted to point out that already there are legal cases in the United States where parents are held accountable for the deaths of their children when those deaths are caused by the parents withholding proper medical treatment.
Mm-hmm.
It's called neglect.
And now on top of this, in this case that you're referring to, the state of New York has the interest of all of the kids in mind, right? I mean, they want to have the school population vaccinated because otherwise you've got little disease carriers running around in your public schools in close proximity with everybody else's kids. So if there's ever a more obvious example of the right of the state to demand that children receive proper medical care, I don't know what it would be.
I know.
So on you go.
I know. And again, let me, before I do the Seattle and King County information, basically just the upshot is the Seattle and King County information contains an article written by former First Lady Rosalind Carter and a woman named Betty Bumpers, who are founders of Every Child by Two. It's an immunization program. So
unfortunate name for a woman, but...
Yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah.
It's a little too close to Betty Boop.
Okay, they're trying to get every kid vaccinated. Excellent.
Right. So, ultimately, there are just countless stories on this site, and actually... Let me see. I don't think I've actually written the address down yet, but I'll get to that to Russell in a second. But essentially, it gives numerous case studies of parents whose children have become either deathly ill or who have died from not receiving vaccinations. And then on the other side, we hear back from that same, going back for a second to that same New York website that we were talking about a moment ago. There's an article on there by a woman named Jessica Hall, and it's the name of the organization that she's with is New Yorkers for Vaccination Information and Choice. And she states, defining my spirituality is simple: respect for the natural elements of life and earth, honoring and answering to love as my higher power, having trust and faith that if I pray, I will be able to connect with this higher power and let it infuse my life with purpose and contentment. And then it gets worse, folks.
Oh, really?
Before our daughter was born, and again, I'm skipping quite a lot of this, but again, you can find on that website that Russell put down earlier. Before our daughter was born, we knew we would not vaccinate her. Our intuition against it was too strong. Intuition.
Your intuition, right? Well, this is for New Yorkers
for vaccination information and choice.
Information. There was no information content in her intuition.
No.
It's not. It is just not the same thing.
Absolutely.
That's
not.
horrifying.
It seems to me that doctors or people in the medical industry at some point saw that diseases make children sick. This is a bad thing. Let's figure out how to fix that, and they do. Now we got people saying that the doctors have done something ungodly. Oh my.
But okay, now I'm going to be, hard-nosed and cruel and blunt about all this. I am very, very tempted to support these people because, in view of recent findings that a certain part of our brains is responsible for these feelings of the presence of divine supernatural forces, right? Mm-hmm. Boy, if we can just get people that have that out of our gene pool by allowing them not to take proper medical care of their own children. If we can get those genetic strains out of our gene pool, it is good for all of us.
Yikes!
Yeah.
I am very tempted.
In public.
I am very tempted to support their demand for freedom from proper medical care.
The problem with that is, though, you expose their children to other children who are taking vaccinations, and you
got to break a few eggs.
Yeah, well, I don't want to break the eggs of the ones who
I know. It just makes me so angry.
Yeah. And that would be punishing the children who have no choice in this matter, and it's up to their ignoramus parents.
They're going to grow up to be little Christ robots. I mean, who cares?
Not necessarily.
All right. I don't really think this, but it makes me so angry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know. It does me too. And,
Then instead I want to see research in, the pill that will deaden that part of the brain.
Yeah.
So people say, I heard God! Here, take this pill. You'll be agnostic by morning.
Much better.
The agnostic pill. There you go.
But something has to be done.
Works on religious and schizophrenics alike.
Humanity cannot go on blundering toward the future. As you pointed out, this is 2002. We can't keep blundering toward the future, carrying along this burden of a genetic predisposition to believe that imaginary friends with cosmic powers are intruding into our lives and making this happen.
Well, if I went in public and started talking to an imaginary friend, I'd probably be diagnosed as either schizophrenic or some other form of crazy.
Unless you're part of a big organization.
Yeah, then it's okay.
But there's treatment for those things. You can take medication nowadays, and it'll go away.
Hey, here's a good laugh. This is totally not related to anything we were just talking about, but I found this on another website. Atheists cannot understand the true God.
What?
I love this. One of atheists' gravest mistakes when speaking about God, the true God, is that they bundle God along with his limited creation, as though he is subject to its environment, its laws, and its entanglements.
No, we bundle him along with it because supposedly he created it, right? And therefore it indicates what it is that he's capable of and what it is he's after.
I know.
Sorry, go on.
This guy makes me laugh. They devise invalid situations and conclusions which do not and cannot apply to a God infinitely higher than what their deranged and minuscule minds can conceive of.
Deranged.
Deranged. That sounds like something for the Atheist Ombudsman.
See,
I don't know. We were just... I'm just sitting here calling Christians deranged in a certain way.
Yeah, okay.
They, on the other hand, I've got scientific studies showing that there's a particular brain condition that makes these people think that their God is like creeping around.
That actually exists.
Creeping, floating, hovering.
Yeah. But where's this from?
This is from a website, Citizens for the Ten Commandments, which is ironic because, we have our own David Clark in the Atheist Community of Austin who has his website, removetheten.com.
Right,
so be sure to check that out.
He really needs to change his website to remove the 11. Because, the Ten Commandments monument, David Clark is organizing an effort to remove the Ten Commandments monument from the lawn of the state capitol here in Austin, Texas. And the thing is, the monument is entitled Ten Commandments, but it lists 11. They're not numbered, but it lists 11. Apparently because Protestants and Catholics have different versions of the Ten Commandments, so they listed both versions of the one on which Protestants and Catholics disagree.
We were standing around that monument last Saturday. They were talking about how none of them really were any moral issues at all. I mean, there was like, thou shalt not kill is not even on that monument.
What?
Think.
How can it not be? Did they list the other set? We did a whole thing, I think, last week about the second set of Ten Commandments.
One of them, I might be wrong.
One of them completely misses. I doubt it, because that would be the set then that's about the Feast of Weeks and the first fruits of your newborn.
The majority of those that list have absolutely nothing to do with good behavior.
That's true.
A lot of people on the Atheist Network are saying they're getting heavy net congestion. I'd just like to remind everybody, though, that there's going to be an archive of this show at atheist-community.org. I'll repost that link on the chat room in a minute. So if you're missing any of the tail end of the show, then you can pick it up later.
Well, net congestion just delays when it gets to you. You still hear it, don't you?
I think so.
Yeah.
But
they're dropping like several seconds.
Right. In my experience, if it gets so bad that it like freaks out your Real Player, then you may have to reboot Real Player, and when you do that, then it picks up from wherever it is now, and then you lose bits. All right. Sorry about that, folks. Out of our control. Let's go to this week's critical thinking tip. All that nonsense about maybe we should just let them kill off their own genetic lines aside, because now I take a firm grip on myself and say, no, we don't really want to do that. We actually, we are a society so that we can do what is best for everyone, not just what's best for those of us who think we know best. So all that aside, the only reasonable option open to us is education. And so if you want to be a nonprofit like us and be able to navigate your way through life by making good decisions without having to have some invisible friend whispering in your ear, then you need to know how to think rationally. And here's this week's tip. Replicability. Last week we talked about honesty, which the rule of honesty, which says that the evidence offered in support of any claim must be evaluated without self-deception. This week we're going to talk about replicability. If the evidence for any claim is based upon experimental results, or if the evidence offered in support of any claim could logically be explained as coincidental, then it is necessary for independent observers to follow the same procedures and to achieve the same results in subsequent experiments or trials. Any experiment, no matter how carefully designed and executed, is always subject to the possibility of coincidence, implicit bias, or undetected error. This rule provides a safeguard against those risks.
Hence, vaccinations.
Yeah. Vaccinations have passed this test.
Yeah.
If someone correctly predicts a roll of the dice, you should ask them to duplicate the feat before granting that the prediction was anything but a coincidence. If a religious investigator claims to have experimental proof of the efficacy of prayer, it is reasonable to wait for the experiment to be replicated by a number of neutral researchers before lending it credence. Given the subtlety and complexity of most scientific experiments, even cautious and unbiased scientists can commit errors. Therefore, any single experimental result is never adequate in and of itself, no matter whether the experiment concerns some obscure detail about particle physics or the discovery of exciting new supernatural powers. It's only reasonable to conclude that the original experimental results were untainted by coincidence, bias, or simple mistake after a great majority of independent researchers have repeated the procedure and obtained the same results.
Yes.
The rule of replicability is regularly violated by parapsychologists who are especially fond of misinterpreting coincidences. The famous psychic sleuth, Gerard Croiset, for example, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, allegedly solved numerous baffling crimes and located hundreds of missing persons in a career that spanned 5 decades, from the 1940s until his death in 1980. The truth is that the overwhelming majority of his predictions were either vague and non-falsifiable or simply wrong. Given the fact that he made thousands of predictions during his lifetime, it is hardly surprising that he enjoyed 1 or 2 chance hits. The late Dutch parapsychologist Wilhelm Tenhaff seized upon those very few prize cases to argue that Croiset had actually demonstrated psi powers. That was a clear violation of the rule of replicability, not to mention the rule of honesty. A few isolated hits cannot reasonably be taken as evidence of psychic abilities, even if those few prize hits actually occurred. In fact, however, much of Tenhaff's data was fraudulent. And that's this week's tool of critical thinking. Next week we will talk about the rule of sufficiency, which says that, beginning with the burden of proof. The burden of proof for any claim rests on the claimant. It is not the responsibility of others to disprove a claim. I know you've all heard that a bunch of times, but we're going to get into a little more of the nuts and bolts of exactly how that works. Okay, that's our critical thinking tip. I had some other standard announcements, which I repeat every week. Let me read those for the record also. The National Atheist Ombuds is out there. I remember they came up during Mary's reading of the accusation that atheists are, what did they say, deranged?
Yes.
Deranged. No, but that's not in the media, so the Ombuds have little to say about it.
Oh, deranged and minuscule. Minuscule mind.
Minuscule!
Wow. I love it!
And yet, we're the people, who manage to get by in life without having to have an invisible friend whispering in our ear telling us what's right and wrong, what's true and what's not true. We work that all out for ourselves.
And quite
why
often,
is it that
with less trauma?
Right.
Yeah, and we do fine. In fact, the non-believers tend to be more successful than believers, looking at the statistics. So, where's the evidence supporting this claim of minusculeness of our minds? We have to think harder because we're thinking for ourselves rather than having it handed to us on a silver platter. Anyway, any instances of slurs, defamation, or discrimination against atheists or other non-believers in the U.S. media can now be reported to the National Atheist Ombuds by emailing ombuds@atheism.org. Include as many details as applicable and a news source, if you know what it is. Incidents will be reported to participating national and local non-theist organizations who will distribute press releases regarding the reported subject matter. Once again, the Third International Rationalist Conference will take place in New Delhi, India, February 8 to 12. That's just come up in a few weeks, assuming that they have not had a nuclear war before then, and it's not a smoking, radioactive wasteland. All correspondence to the Third International Rationalist Conference should be addressed to conference@rationalistinternational.net. Excuse me, Russell?
Somebody come listen to this, not you. Just keep going.
For more information, you can visit www.rationalistinternational.net. There will be a creation-evolution debate here in Austin, Texas, at the University of Texas on February 15 at 6:30 on the UT campus in UTC 2.111A. 2.112A. Tickets are $5. The event was organized by members of Helping Austin Area Schools, a registered student organization at the University of Texas at Austin, with concerns about the quality of science education in our public schools. They are expecting mostly Christians in the audience and have therefore extended a special invitation to non-believers. For information on getting tickets, email Doug Keller. His email address is pogie@mail.utexas.edu. That's POUGIE@mail.utexas.edu. Eat More Christians t-shirts are available from www.cafepress.com/nogods. If you've ever seen those billboards for Chick-fil-A with the 3 cows holding up billboards saying, "Eat more chicken." Chick-fil-A is a fundamentalist Christian fast food chain, and we have responded with the Eat More Christians t-shirts with lions holding up signs with their little piece of advice.
Yeah.
Proceeds will go toward the cost of running and promoting this fine program you're listening to right here.
Which has sound effects.
We have sound effects?
We have sound effects because the net congestion is doing some funny things to your voice, so you sound more computerized.
Oh, weird.
Really?
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Cool. I want to be more computerized. Darth Vader! Hey, everybody, it's Darth Vader!
I'm your father.
Oh,
Just commented.
Darth Vader, Christian minister. I'll go with the Christian minister, sadly. Okay, let's see.
What's the difference?
You want to talk about that in the last few minutes of the show?
The difference between a fundamentalist Christian and Darth Vader.
Fundamentalist Christianity not the dark side of the Force? You know that there's fundies running around claiming that Star Wars is satanic because they, according to them, Wiccans refer to magic as the Force.
Yeah.
You heard this?
I haven't heard that particular one, but there are fundies who claim that Harry Potter is the dark side of the Force. So I love it whenever I hear a new one about Harry Potter. Because, I've read Harry Potter, and there's nothing in Harry Potter that you could possibly believe, if you have any calm of sense whatsoever, is teaching children magic. This is just silliness made for a kid's story. The magic in it is even silly, on purpose.
Yeah.
And of course, the author of that book has claimed many times that these people are just whacked.
Oh, man. All right.
Oh, and I love how the Harry Potter idiots are also burning Shakespeare. That
What?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah.
haven't heard that one. They're
group
burning Shakespeare now?
That group out in New Mexico who burned the Harry Potter books were also burning Shakespeare.
Because...
I don't know. That's what I never...
Oh, because Midsummer Night's Dream has got, pagan super...
The Tempest.
The Tempest
Oh,
has
okay.
all kinds of bad stuff in it.
Yeah, the Tempest is the Tempest. But
it's one thing to doom your own offspring to death because of your stupid religious beliefs. It's quite another thing to be attacking culture, to be attacking literature. Like the Taliban was doing in Afghanistan, blowing up the Buddha statues because they thought that Buddhism was satanic.
Well, it was a graven image or
Insult
something like that.
to
It was
Allah.
against Allah,
Yeah.
because you can't have images. They're not even supposed to have pictures of themselves. I'm pretty sure that was one of their things.
Fundamentalist Muslim belief says that you're not supposed to have representative images of anything. You ever notice if you look at pictures of Muslim buildings, they have these elaborate geometric patterns all over them?
Right.
That's because that's about the only kind of art you can have under fundamentalist Muslim belief.
Well, isn't that just boring?
You couldn't have pictures of animals or people. You couldn't depict anything.
Oh, man.
I can't imagine a world without Photoshop. That would just be so awful.
Yeah, man.
Ooh.
Well, this has been an exciting show. I hope that, on the one hand, we have the good, cool new microphones, and the impression I'm getting is that has greatly improved the quality of our broadcast. But
I'm
then
really
we get on this
impressed by
neck
the idea
congestion, too, which is a pain in the ass.
Well, I'm glad I don't have to eat the microphone just to talk into it. That's a great improvement.
According to my watch, we are, past the end of our time. What do you say there, Mr. Producer?
I say we still have another minute. But
Another minute.
I'd just like to comment that despite our sound problems, we had 13 people stay in the chat room for a really long time.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
so,
huge. Once again, that chat room is at www.atheistnetwork.com. And next week, we will be back again with another 1-hour show. This is from 1 to 2 Eastern, 2 to 3 Central. And if you want to join us in the chat room to pal around with other people listening to the show and sometimes interact with what we're saying, you can go to that webpage and click on the chat link.
And for those who did not catch it in the chat room, there will be a rebroadcast of the show at atheist-community.org. Just click on the radio page.
That is on demand, right?
Yeah, right.
Cool.
You can download it.
Hey.
Yay, Ashley!
Awesome. Oh, what?
Didn't
Ashley
you
do that?
No, I did.
Oh, yeah.
Yay, Russell.
Well, Ashley's been working on
He's
other...
making CDs of it.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. Well, thanks for joining
all
us.
kinds of
Once
music.
again, we will be back next week with another exciting episode filled with absolutely no advice from beyond. And we'll leave you with our closing music, which is, once again, Talking Heads, Puzzling Evidence. Bye-bye, everybody.
Later.
Bye.